You've probably heard the same message your whole life. If you work hard enough, stay disciplined, and push through the pain, success will come. It's a story we've been told since childhood by schools, parents, the media, and even well-meaning mentors. Wake up early, grind every day, sacrifice your free time, and someday you'll be rewarded. It sounds reasonable, even noble. But here's the hard truth. Most people who follow this path still feel stuck, tired, unfulfilled, financially strained. And that's not an accident. It's by design. We've been sold a lie about wealth. Not just a small misunderstanding, but a deeply rooted belief that has shaped how we live our lives. They told us wealth is something we have to chase, that if we just push hard enough, it will eventually come. But the more you push, the more it slips away. You might know that feeling, the constant pressure to do more, be more, achieve more. Yet despite all the effort, the freedom you're working for never seems to arrive. That's because real wealth doesn't respond to stress and struggle. It responds to alignment. Let's pause there. What does alignment mean? It's not some mystical or vague idea. Alignment simply means being in sync with who you really are. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions come from a place of peace, confidence, and clarity, not fear or desperation, that's alignment. And that's where wealth begins. You see, wealth isn't just money. It's a state of being. It's how you feel when you wake up in the morning. It's your sense of freedom, purpose, and possibility. When you think wealth is only about numbers in a bank account, you fall into the trap of thinking more effort will fix everything. But effort alone isn't enough. In fact, it can become a distraction from the real work, the inner work. That's where things get flipped. We've been conditioned to think of money as something out there, something separate from us. But what if the truth is the opposite? What if wealth starts within you? What if it flows to the version of you that already feels safe, abundant, and worthy? Most people don't believe that. Not because it isn't true, but because they've never been taught how to feel that way. From a young age, we're trained to believe we must earn everything, that nothing is given unless it's paid for in sweat and sacrifice. So when someone tells us we can attract money just by shifting our internal state, it sounds like a scam. Too easy, too soft, too weird. But what if it's not weird? What if it's simply unfamiliar? This isn't about quitting your job or abandoning ambition. It's about realizing that the energy you bring to your actions matters more than the actions themselves. You can work a 12-hour day from a place of fear and still feel broke. Or you can work a focused 4-hour day from a place of calm confidence and start seeing things shift. Why? Because energy is louder than action. Your emotional state speaks volumes, even when your mouth is silent. And money, like everything else in life, responds to that frequency. Think about it. How many people do you know who do everything right, follow the steps, make the list, stay busy, and still feel like they're spinning their wheels? And how many others seem to move through life with ease, attracting opportunities, support, and wealth without constant hustle? The difference isn't luck. It's not even intelligence. It's alignment. The first group is stuck in survival mode. Their nervous system is constantly on high alert. They live in fear of not having enough, so they keep chasing. But here's the paradox. The energy of chasing actually pushes what you want further away. It tells the universe, I don't have this yet, and I'm scared I never will. That energy creates resistance. It creates stress. It blocks flow. The second group, they've learned to relax into trust, to move from a place of belief, not fear, to take action, yes, but not from panic. They're not scrambling to prove their worth. They already know it. And because of that, money flows to them more easily. Not because they're better, but because they're aligned. So how do you make this shift? You don't do it by adding more to your to-do list. You do it by subtracting what's blocking you. That means facing the old stories you carry about money, stories that say you're not enough, that wealth is for other people, that success must be earned through suffering. These beliefs don't live in your head. They live in your body, in your nervous system, in your daily emotional state. This is why inner work is not optional. If you're trying to build a wealthy life on top of a foundation of fear, self-doubt, and scarcity, it won't last. You can have the best strategies in the world, but if deep down you don't believe you're worthy, the success will feel hollow, or it won't come at all. Because your outer world always mirrors your inner one. You've probably experienced this without even realizing it. Ever notice how when you're feeling good, confident, and relaxed, good things seem to show up more easily? And when you're stressed, anxious, or overwhelmed, everything seems harder? That's not just coincidence. It's energy, it's frequency, and it's physics. We live in a universe where like attracts like. That's not some fluffy New Age idea. It's how reality works. Your thoughts create emotions. Your emotions shape your energy. Your energy sends out a signal, and that signal draws in experiences that match it. It's a feedback loop. If you're constantly stressed about money, you'll keep attracting situations that reinforce that stress. But if you shift into a state of calm abundance, even before your bank account reflects it, you start changing the pattern. That's why gratitude, presence, and self-worth matter. Not because they're nice ideas, but because they change your energetic signature. They tune your frequency to something that wealth can actually respond to. Now, this doesn't mean you never take action, but your action becomes more intentional, more aligned, more effective. You stop hustling in every direction hoping something sticks. You start moving from clarity. You stop proving. You start embodying. You stop pushing. You start allowing. This shift won't happen overnight, and that's okay. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to begin. To pause the chase. To look inward. To ask yourself, what energy am I really operating from? What do I believe about money, success, and myself? What am I still trying to prove, and to who? The answers might surprise you. They might challenge you, but they'll also free you. Because once you stop trying to earn your worth, you make space for true wealth to arrive. Not just money, but ease, flow, purpose, and joy. Here's the truth. You are not lazy. You are not broken. You are not behind. You've just been taught to play a game that was never meant to be won. The rules you followed were designed to keep you chasing a finish line that keeps moving. But now you know better. Now you can step off the treadmill. Now you can choose alignment over anxiety. You don't need another side hustle. You don't need another morning routine. You need a recalibration, not of what you're doing, but of who you're being. Because wealth isn't a reward for your suffering. It's a reflection of your alignment. And alignment starts when you stop trying to become someone else and start remembering who you already are. You don't need to be perfect to become wealthy. You don't need to have all your emotional wounds healed or be spiritually enlightened or always make the right decisions. That's a lie we've been told over and over again. What you do need is honesty. You need to be real with yourself about what's going on inside. What beliefs are you carrying? What fears are influencing your decisions? Instead of asking, how can I make more money? Try asking, who is the version of me that's making these choices? Is it a version rooted in truth or in fear? That simple question can shift everything. Because when you become aware, you stop building from panic and anxiety. You start building from a place of calm, clarity, and power. You stop thinking, I need to get rich so I can become someone. And you realize, I become someone, and then wealth meets me there. Most people don't realize this, but scarcity isn't just a thought pattern. It's a spell, a mental and emotional trance we've been under for so long that we don't even notice it anymore. It's not just in your wallet. It's in your words. It's in how you second-guess your desires, how you shrink your goals, how you apologize for dreaming bigger. It's in the way you settle for less, not because you want to, but because deep down, you've been taught to believe you shouldn't ask for more. You weren't born this way. You were born open, free, full of possibility. But somewhere along the way, someone told you that asking for more was selfish, that it was dangerous to stand out, that you should be grateful for just getting by. These ideas weren't just spoken out loud, they were passed down in quiet moments, in tension around money, in arguments you overheard, in the way people reacted when bills couldn't be paid. You didn't just witness these things, you absorbed them. Your nervous system took notes. You learned that money equals stress, that wanting more is greedy, that having too much makes you a target. And slowly, without realizing it, you began to feel safer struggling than succeeding. Not because you liked the struggle, but because it felt familiar. And what's familiar often feels safer than what's free. This is why so many people live in a cycle that never seems to end. They earn money, they spend it, they stress about it, and they start all over again. Every time they think, next time will be different. But nothing changes because the cycle isn't about money. It's emotional. It's energetic. It's rooted in beliefs they don't even know they have. Beliefs like, this is all I deserve, or this is just how life is, or this is the best I can do. They live in that emotional loop because no one ever told them they could step off it. No one ever showed them how. You might try to rise up, get a better job, start a side hustle, save a little more. And maybe for a moment, things start looking up. But then something always pulls you back. A sudden expense, a mistake, a choice you can't quite explain. It's not because you're unlucky. It's not even because you're doing anything wrong. It's because your identity, the part of you that feels normal, is set at a certain level of wealth, and anything beyond it feels unsafe. Not on purpose, not consciously, but energetically. Your nervous system sees more money as more pressure, more visibility, more risk. So it creates resistance. That resistance is why everything feels hard. It's why you feel like you're working twice as hard as everyone else and still barely moving forward. Because you're not just working against circumstances, you're dragging emotional weight into every opportunity. And that weight as energy. Scarcity isn't always about having too little money. Often, it's about having too little safety, too little trust, too little belief that you can hold more. And until you feel safe receiving wealth, it won't stick. Not because you're broken, but because your energy isn't ready to hold it. This is where a lot of people give up. They try all the things, affirmations, budgeting apps, financial planners. They start businesses. They hustle harder. But they don't realize that no matter how much action they take, if their energy is rooted in fear, nothing truly changes. Because you can't hustle your way out of a subconscious belief. You can't fix a feeling of lack with logic alone. You have to go deeper. You have to look at the loop for what it really is, a pattern. And when you see that it's a pattern, not a personal failure, you can change it. And change starts with truth. You have to get honest about the stories you're still telling yourself. Where did you learn that money is hard to get? Who taught you that you had to suffer to deserve more? What do you really believe about wealth? even if you never say it out loud. These aren't just questions for your mind, they're keys to unlock your future. Because once you see the story, you can choose to stop living by it. There's a deeper reason why money feels blocked for so many people, and it's something we don't talk about enough: shame. Not the loud, obvious kind of shame, the quiet, sneaky kind. The shame of wanting more. The shame of succeeding when others are struggling. The guilt of having when others have less. It shows up in small ways, like when you undercharge for your work, when you hesitate to raise your prices, or when you downplay your dreams so you don't make others uncomfortable. It's a voice that says, "Who do you think you are?" This shame is old. It's generational. It's baked into our cultures, our religions, our families. We're told to be humble, to not ask for too much, to be grateful even when we're barely getting by. And so we learn to shrink. We convince ourselves that needing less makes us better people. But it doesn't make us better, it just makes us invisible. And money can't flow to someone who's hiding. When you carry shame, you hesitate. You doubt yourself. You attract people and opportunities that reflect that low value back to you. And over time, it feels normal. But it's not. It's just what your body has learned to expect. Because here's the truth. Your life will always reflect what your body believes is safe. And if abundance doesn't feel safe, it won't stay. That's why people lose money just as fast as they earn it. That's why windfalls vanish. Why promotions bring stress instead of joy. Because money isn't just about math. It's about capacity. And capacity isn't about your skills or intelligence. It's emotional. It's nervous system deep. If you still believe that struggle is your default setting, peace will feel unfamiliar. If you still carry shame, success will feel like something you have to suffer for. But wealth doesn't punish or reward. It simply responds. It matches your frequency. If your energy is saying, "Maybe not me," then money will believe you. If there's a gap between what you want and what you believe you deserve, that gap will always slow you down. To shift that energy, you don't need to work harder. You need to forgive yourself for all the times you played small, for every time you traded your truth for comfort, for all the moments you convinced yourself that less was safer than more. None of that made you a better person. It just kept you hidden. And wealth can't find someone who is hiding from themselves. The truth is, you were never meant to chase scraps or compete in a system designed to keep you in fear. You were meant to remember who you were before the world told you to be afraid. Abundant. Whole. Magnetic. You don't have to earn that truth, you just have to return to it. The spell of scarcity only works as long as you believe in it. The moment you stop agreeing with it, it starts to break. The moment you stop saying, "maybe later," and start saying, "I'm ready," things begin to move. Not because money suddenly appears out of nowhere, but because you shift. Your frequency changes. Your choices become bolder. Your energy becomes clearer. And the world responds. Wealth isn't something outside of you. It's something you allow. Something you create space for. Something you receive when you believe you can hold it without guilt, without apology, without shame. You're not here to survive the loop. You're here to break it. You don't have to earn your worth through hard work and struggle. You don't have to prove it or chase it or wait until you've fixed every flaw in yourself. You just have to stop apologizing for it. Stop pretending like you need to become someone else before you're allowed to feel worthy. You don't. You're already enough. Right now. The version of you reading these words is capable of everything you desire. Not someday, not later, not after the next course, promotion, or transformation. Right now. The reason so many people feel stuck isn't because they don't want more. It's because deep down, they still see themselves as someone who has to fight for every inch. They want abundance, but still think like someone who's barely scraping by. They dream of wealth, but their mind is filled with old beliefs from a time when they had to count every penny. And when you carry that kind of survival thinking into the present, it holds you back, even when your circumstances start to change. If you've always seen yourself as the underdog, or the one who has to work harder than everyone else, then deep down, you might actually resist ease. You might reject overflow. Not because you don't want it, but because it doesn't fit the story you've told yourself about who you are. We all carry identities that feel familiar, roles we've played for so long that they start to feel like the truth. And those identities come with emotional rewards. There's comfort in struggle. There's pride in working hard. There's even a sense of control in starting over. That narrative becomes a safe place to live, even if it's not where you want to stay. But here's the thing, that old version of you can't hold wealth. Not because you're not capable, but because they wouldn't even recognize it. If you still see yourself as someone who always has to make do, then receiving more can actually feel unsafe. Your nervous system flinches. Your mind doubts it. You wonder if it will last or if it's just luck. So you self-sabotage. You undercharge. You say yes when you mean no. You stay small because that feels safer than standing tall in your power. The truth is, you don't attract what you want. You attract what you believe you're aligned with. That's not just spiritual talk. It's about energy. Everything in your world, including you, operates at a certain frequency. The thoughts you think, the emotions you feel, the actions you take, all of it sends out a signal. And that signal tells the world what to bring back to you. If your signal says struggle, then more struggle shows up. If it says lack, then that's what you'll see, even if you're doing all the right things on the surface. That's why so many people burn out. They're working hard. They're staying busy. They're doing what they were told would lead to success, but nothing's shifting. Because the inside hasn't changed. They're still broadcasting fear, or guilt, or unworthiness. They're still waiting for something outside of themselves to give them permission to feel abundant. But here's the real secret. You don't have to wait. You don't have to fix every flaw, or heal every wound, or hustle yourself into the ground. You can decide today to step into the version of you who already feels worthy. Not by pretending, not by faking it, but by remembering who you are underneath all the programming. Beneath all the expectations and pressure and old stories, there's a version of you who has always known you're enough. That version doesn't chase. It doesn't beg. It doesn't doubt. It just is. So what does that mean in practice? It means you start noticing when you're operating from fear, when you're saying yes out of guilt, when you're shrinking to keep others comfortable. And instead of judging yourself, you gently choose something different. You say no when you mean it. You speak your truth. You raise your standards. You stop explaining yourself. Not because you're trying to be someone else, but because you're finally being yourself. The work isn't about doing more. It's about feeling more. It's about tuning into your body and asking, what does abundance feel like for me? Not what it looks like, but how it feels. And being honest about the answer. Because for a lot of people, abundance doesn't feel relaxing at first. It feels foreign. It feels risky. When your nervous system has spent years bracing for impact, peace can feel like a setup. When your worth has always come from giving, receiving can feel selfish. But that discomfort is part of the process. It's not a sign that you're doing it wrong. It's a sign that you're expanding. You're stretching into a new way of being. And just like learning a new skill, it takes time. You have to train yourself to feel safe in overflow, to breathe through the discomfort of ease. to stay grounded when things are good instead of waiting for the other shoe to drop. You're not failing because you feel anxious or afraid. You're just adjusting. Your system is learning what it means to live without struggle as your baseline. That's real growth. That's the shift. You begin to move with certainty, not panic. With clarity, not chaos. You learn to sit in the quiet of abundance without trying to sabotage it or fill it with noise. And the beautiful part? It gets easier. The more you practice being this version of yourself, the one who knows they're worthy, the more natural it feels. You stop performing. You stop chasing. You stop trying to prove anything. You just are. And from that place, money starts to move differently. Opportunities show up. Conversations change. People respond to you with a new level of respect, not because you demanded it, but because your energy led the way. Because energy doesn't lie. It doesn't care what you say. It reads your alignment. If you say you want abundance, but your energy is wrapped in scarcity, it shows. Not just to others, but to yourself. That misalignment is what creates the stuckness. And once you see it clearly, you can shift it. You don't have to become someone else. You just have to stop being the version of you that's based on fear. The version who was shaped by survival. The one who got praised for struggling. That story served you once. It kept you safe. It helped you navigate hard times. But it's not your story forever. You get to write a new one. One where your worth isn't tied to how much you give. One where rest isn't weakness. One where wealth feels natural, not because you earned it the hard way, but because you remembered it was always available to you. You're not broken. You're not behind. You're just recalibrating. And that recalibration is powerful. It's the moment you stop solving for money and start solving for alignment. Because money was never the root issue, it was just the mirror. It showed you where you were holding back, where you were settling, where you were still waiting for permission. So if you want to shift your money reality, stop asking, how can I make more? And start asking, who am I being? That's the real work. The deep work. The kind that lasts. You clear the old patterns. You soften the edges. You let go of the noise. And you listen to the part of you that already knows the way. That version of you, the one who lives in overflow, who makes decisions from trust, who doesn't flinch at ease, isn't some future fantasy. It's a choice you can make right now. One breath at a time. One decision at a time. One moment of courage at a time. Because wealth doesn't rush. It doesn't panic. It doesn't hustle. It moves with calm, with clarity, with coherence. And if you want to align with it, you have to meet it on that level. Not through performance, but through presence. Not through effort, but through embodiment. You don't earn your way into alignment. You remember your way back. You return to the truth of who you've always been beneath the noise. And when you do that, gently, honestly, and consistently, the shift begins. Quiet at first. Subtle, but real. A sense of peace where there used to be tension. A feeling of enough where there used to be lack. That's when you know you're alive. That's when everything starts to change, not because the world shifted, but because you did. Money can feel like a mystery. Sometimes it shows up like a wave, fast and full. Other times, it disappears just as quickly. You get a little extra, and before you know it, it's gone. So many of us treat overflow, having more than enough, like it's a rare accident. And we treat not having enough as normal. But here's something deeper to think about. Your financial life isn't just about numbers. It's about your emotions, your beliefs, and your nervous system. The way you feel inside shapes the way money moves in your life. If you're always stressed, always in survival mode, then even when money does arrive, it won't feel safe to keep. You'll rush to spend it. You'll make risky choices. You'll undervalue your work or say yes to things that drain you. Not because you're bad with money, but because your system is used to not enough. That's your baseline. So anything above that feels unfamiliar, maybe even dangerous. That's why people who win the lottery often lose it all. It's why some business owners hit a breakthrough, then backslide. The internal pattern, the emotional loop, never changed. We're told we need more money, but in truth, most of us need a better relationship with money. A calmer one, a steadier one built on trust and presence, not panic and fear. Imagine if wealth felt natural to you, not like a lucky moment, but like a normal part of life. That shift doesn't start with your income. It starts with your awareness. You have to stop reacting the same way every time fear shows up. When anxiety rises, pause. When the urge to spend from stress kicks in, take a breath. When your thoughts say, "I'll never have enough," don't fight it. Just notice it. See it for what it is, an old belief, not the truth. When you stop believing that thought, you break the cycle. You can build a new one, a healthier one. It starts with being present. From there, you get clarity. Then you take action from a grounded place, not a panicked one. That leads to stability, peace, and eventually overflow. And not because you forced it, but because you aligned with it. Because you allowed it to feel safe. True wealth isn't just money in the bank. It's the feeling of safety in your body. It's knowing you can rest and still be valuable. It's letting yourself receive without guilt. To really break free from scarcity, you have to make abundance feel normal, not just in your head, but in your nervous system. Your body has to believe it too. Most of us were trained to believe the opposite. We grew up around people who were always working, always worried, always chasing. So we inherited those patterns. We learned that survival is the default, and anything beyond that must be earned through struggle. But that's not the truth. That's conditioning. You were never meant to live in survival. You were meant to grow, to expand, to live in a state of ease and overflow, not as a reward, but as a right. It doesn't start with hitting a certain number. It starts the moment you stop tying your identity to lack. When you stop thinking of yourself as someone who's always almost there, but never quite arriving. The real shift happens when you stop chasing money and start remembering who you are without the stress. You've probably heard this before. It's not your fault. And that's true. You've been shaped by a system that profits from your struggle. From school to social media to what we're told about success, it's all built on the same idea. That you're not enough unless you prove it. That wealth must be earned in pain. That freedom is for the lucky few. And the rest of us? We just keep grinding, keep doubting, keep trying to make it. But that's not the only way. And deep down, you know that. There's a part of you that's tired of proving, tired of shrinking, tired of holding your breath and calling it normal. That part of you doesn't need permission. It doesn't need another step-by-step formula. It just needs to be remembered. Because here's what's true. You can be the hardest working person in the room and still feel broke if you haven't made peace with money. You can build the dream business, hit the revenue goals, and still sabotage yourself when ease shows up. Not because you don't want success, but because deep down, it feels unsafe. You were taught that having more would isolate you, that being comfortable makes you lazy, that rest means you're falling behind. So even when success arrives, you're bracing for the crash. And that constant bracing, it keeps you stuck in the same emotional loop. This isn't about effort. You're not lazy. You're tired. You're tired of performing, tired of pretending you're okay, tired of chasing goals that don't even feel good once you reach them. You're tired of living by rules you didn't write, of measuring your worth by how hard you work, of constantly seeking approval from systems that never had your best interest in mind. You were taught to fit in, not to stand out, to shrink, not to expand, to play it safe, not to trust yourself. Even ambition was handed to you with hidden rules. Be bold, but not too bold. Be successful, but don't make others uncomfortable. Work hard, but don't outgrow your place. So you learn to suppress the part of you that wants more. The part that's loud, confident, and unapologetic. The part that remembers how to lead, not from ego, but from truth. That's the part we need now. The part that's been buried under years of doubt and guilt and old beliefs. You're not stuck because you're broken. You're stuck because you're still carrying beliefs that were never yours. You've been trained to fear overflow, to mistrust ease, to brace against abundance. But what if having more didn't make you unsafe? What if it made you free? Freedom isn't about piling up money. It's about removing the invisible chains. The shame, the fear, the conditioning that says you're not there yet. You don't need more effort. You need less noise, less doubt, less performing. Wealth doesn't come from struggle. It comes from clarity. And clarity begins when you ask the right questions. Who told me I had to do it this way? Who benefits from me staying small? What would happen if I stopped believing those old stories? When you ask those questions, something shifts. You stop chasing and you start seeing. You can't unsee the truth. And once you've seen it, you can't go back to pretending you don't know. That's when things change, not just your money, but your whole identity. The goal isn't just to get rich. The goal is to get real. To remember that wealth isn't a prize, it's a reflection. A mirror that shows you how you see yourself, how you value yourself, and how safe it feels to receive. Most people look at that mirror and see distortion. Not because they're broken, but because they've been told to look outside for their worth. So they keep building out more goals, more stuff, more proving, while falling apart inside. Hustling for validation. Climbing ladders that lead nowhere. Forgetting that everything they're chasing is already inside. You don't change your life by stacking more. You change it by letting go, by dropping the false beliefs, the old stories, the masks you've worn just to feel safe. When those fall away, you come home to yourself. And that's where wealth begins, not as a goal, but as a state of being. It shows up when you no longer use money to fill the gap, when you stop using it to prove your worth, when you remember that enough was never something you had to earn. It was something you were born with. When you see that, everything changes. You stop chasing rooms to get into. You remember, you are the room. You stop fighting for scraps. You raise your standards, and the world rises to meet you. You don't need to explain this to anyone. You don't need permission to shift. You just have to decide. The moment you do, life reorganizes around that decision. The right people appear. The right ideas flow in. The opportunities that used to feel out of reach start showing up because you're no longer hiding from who you are. You weren't born to live at the edge of just enough. You weren't born to scrape by. You're here to circulate wealth, to reflect the truth of who you are. That truth, you are whole, you are ready, and you are enough, not someday, but now. Money isn't the prize. You are.